Welcome back, everybody. As we all know, James Gunn announced his plan recently, and it sort of had a mixed reaction from the fan base. The first part of James's plan is called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Also, if you enjoy this kind of content and want to see more, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe. We know that there will be creature commandos and Waller that will serve as an appetizer. What I want to focus on, though, is Superman Legacy. Specifically, try and understand why Gunn made the decision to focus on a younger Superman instead of continuing with Henry Cavill. There are probably a few compelling answers to the question, first being that the DCEU or Snyderverse is basically a mess. From the time that Zack Snyder left, there's been a revolving door of studio executives at Warner Brothers that have had their own take on what is best for the DCEU. As soon as a plan would come together and take effect, that person would leave or be let go in order for another executive, who of course had their own plans for the franchises. I also hate to say it, but the original plan of the DCEU had one major flaw, and that was to try to jumpstart interest in a shared universe by putting the team movie early on and then doing solo movies afterwards. For all the shade that the MCU gets, their Phase 1 was done perfectly, doing solo movies that interconnect and then doing a team movie against a larger threat that no one individual superhero could defeat independently. To continue with the DCEU cast would probably be kind of like the law of diminishing returns. For all the work that they would have to do to sort out the mess left behind by the previous management, it would be that much longer than just starting from fresh. Lastly, and I really hate to say this, but us Snyderverse fans are very vocal on the internet. But when it comes to supporting and promoting the materials that we dig, we just don't show up in the numbers that would justify continuing such a problematic cinema universe. The big question is the plan that James Gunn is enacting a good one? And to be honest, I don't know, but it is a plan. And it has the highest support from Warner Brothers. And it's fully intended on being acted upon. And that's better than what DC Studios has had in a while. Let's look into the new flagship for DC film with James Gunn's Superman Legacy. We know that Gunn himself will be writing the film. And more than likely, it will have no higher of an explicit rating than a PG-13 and probably lower. This means that Gunn will be a little restricted when it comes to his storytelling and his reliance on, well, let's just call it blue material. I'm hoping that means there'll be no bathroom jokes or references to a chocolate starfish, like in the Suicide Squad. James Gunn will write the movie, but the rumor is that he won't be directing. And personally, I hope that's not the case. He is a talented director. Case in point, he injects his films with humor and heart. Also, Gunn is a very underrated action director. Both of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies had wonderful action set pieces. This was made even better since James took the time to develop the characters and thus give the audience a reason to care about the action. This Superman movie will not be an origin story, but it will probably be early in Superman's career. Much of the promotional imagery for the Superman Legacy movie comes from All-Star Superman. This is unlikely to be an adaptation of the Grant Morrison title since it deals with Superman's mortality, but it is possible that some of the concepts and feel of the book may be included into the movie. One question people may ask is why Henry Cavill can't play this version of Superman, since it won't be an origin story, especially since canonically not a lot of time has passed from Man of Steel to Zack Snyder's Justice League. The short answer is that in the comics, Superman is about 29. Anything too young, he's still Clark Kent training to be Superman. That much older, we start coming into Elseworld titles that focus on an older Superman, like Kingdom Come, written by Mark Waid, or The Dark Knight Returns, written by the legendary Frank Miller. Sadly, Henry Cavill is not 29 anymore. In fact, at the time of recording, he's a full decade older than the comic book age of Superman. James Gunn has gone on record recently saying that no one has been cast as Superman as of yet, but given that they are shooting for a July 11th, 2025 release date, they probably are searching right now for someone that can fill the supersuit. Now, what are the preferred requirements for Superman? Youth, like I said, late 20s, early 30s would be preferred. Height, preferably over 6 feet. But of course, this isn't a deal breaker. Traditionally, black hair and blue eyes. Of course, the latter isn't an absolute requirement, especially since contacts can be worn. A great example is Brandon Routh, who naturally has brown eyes, but with the help of contacts, his eyes were blue in Superman Returns. Let us look at some possible candidates. Mind you, this is in no particular order. Nicholas Hoult would be a pretty good choice. He checks many of the boxes, standing a towering 6'3" and very much has piercing blue eyes. Hoult would embody Superman and Clark's empathy really effectively. I could see Nicholas as a really good Clark Kent. Not to mention he has comic book experience with movie franchises like The X-Men, where he played Dr. Hank McCoy, aka The Beast. David Corenswet would be another great candidate. He's 29 and graduated from Juilliard. By the way, that's Christopher Reeve's alma mater. He's 6'4" and has a ridiculously strong jawline. Michael B. Jordan usually comes up in conversation when it comes to Superman. He stands an even 6 foot and is in tremendous shape. Jordan has plenty of comic book movie experience with Black Panther and the 2015 version of the Fantastic Four. Not to mention, he's Adonis Creed. One drawback of Michael B. Jordan would be his age, since he's 35 years old. But of course, Gunn could go with one of his alumni of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and I'm not talking about Pratt, not Chris Pratt. Well, he'd be alright. Instead, I am talking about Mr. Adam Warlock, or Space Jesus himself, Will Poulter. He's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, by the way. Poulter is 30 years old and has had one of the biggest glow-ups in recent Hollywood history. But then again, Austin Butler would be a very interesting choice. He recently played Elvis Presley in Baz Luhrmann's directed movie Elvis. In fact, he won a Golden Globe for Best Actor. Austin has been recently cast as Fade Routha, and he's got almost an alien quality to him. That could help him play everyone's favorite Kryptonian. Of course, one name I keep seeing over and over again is Jacob Elordi. In fact, James Gunn had to shut down rumors that he had already been cast in the role. Elordi is massive at 6'5", and he's 25 years old. So he could be a big part of Gunn's DC universe for a long time. Jacob is known for his roles in the Kissing Booth movies and Euphoria. Personally, I think he would be a great fit for the role, not just due to his size and youth, but also for the fact that he's a relatively unknown actor. Historically speaking, that's a quality that benefits the Superman franchise. I mean, Henry Cavill wasn't a household name until after he'd spent time in the Cape. One thing to keep in mind that even though James Gunn is building his own cinematic universe, that doesn't necessarily mean that the DCEU is done and gone forever. Gunn has been pretty consistent in press and with his Twitter account that talent like Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and even Ben Affleck won't be utilized in this first part of the DCU. But that doesn't mean they can't be used in the future. In fact, according to a Hollywood Reporter article, Gunn is quoted as saying, "There's nothing that prohibits that from happening." He's talking about DCEU stars reprising their roles. This is possible because all projects that don't involve his timeline can be relegated to an Elseworld movie, like the Batman and the Joker. This also would probably include previous works. Now, on the surface, that may seem like a bad thing, but it really isn't. And if, and this is a big if, Warner Brothers Discovery and Zack Snyder ever come to favorable terms, maybe Zack could finish his Justice League trilogy. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it could. Also, there is a DC multiverse to consider. I could see an event that requires multiple versions of DC heroes, sort of like a DC version of Spider-Man No Way Home, possibly involving multiple Supermen and Batman. Wow, Batman, that's a weird word when you come to think about it. I don't think I've ever said it before. James Gunn and Peter Safran have one of the toughest jobs in the entertainment industry at the moment, especially Gunn, since he's pretty much the public face of the company. No matter what he chooses, he's gonna get pushback from longtime fans of the Snyderverse. I have no idea if he'll be fully successful with what he and Safran are setting out to do, but I will say it does seem better than the post-Justice League management who wanted Supergirl, Batgirl, and various other secondary superheroes to be the focus of the shared universe. But of course, those are just my opinions, and I would love to hear yours. Feel free to express yourself in the comment section. And as always, fare thee well, my friends, and take care. Cue the music.